Hello, hello, Ryan Randall. What's happening,
Up,
bud?
dude? How are you, dude?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me today. Doris,
Anytime.
Jim, John, Bruce, Bill, Beth, Kevin. Good to see all you guys. So we are going to spend some time today. Ryan, they asked, so we put together something. So everybody joining us today is going to get this editable buyer's experience guide, and
Yep.
it's based off of the guides we use at Place in Ben Kinney, and he's a founder here at Brivity, and his partner Chris Suarez. We've got about 300 and I don't know how many today, Ryan, 330 teams across the United States that all kind of run on the Place models and systems. And this obviously some major kind of lawsuits came down recently, right? And we're heading into this kind of transitioning period in real estate where, come whatever the date is in August, or I think that thing's now being litigated a little bit more, and maybe it ends up pushed. But we are in a world where you are essentially now not just going and getting the listing appointment signed. We have to go and get buyers under buyer's agency agreement. Ryan, you guys have been doing this in Washington for longer than since this came down, right?
Yeah. So our MLS, Northwest MLS, gosh, I want to say it was like 19, maybe even 18. Made some changes. So it doesn't feel as different to me, honestly, as maybe in some other markets. Our listing agreements had always really specified what listing office commission was, what selling office commission was. So we've had that from the get-go. We've been really encouraged, especially probably in the last 18 months, to get buyer agency signed and really explain the differences and in what's going on compensation wise. So it hasn't felt very different, honestly. I think it's still like 90, I think it's over 97, maybe even over 98.5% of listings are still offering about a 2.5% commission in ours. So we're still seeing most sellers offering a cooperating commission. Obviously, that's negotiable at any point in time, but we haven't seen a big drop off in that. And like I said, our MLS has had that set up in some ways since 2018, 2019, but really in the last 18 months.
So we all of this to say, like, we've been implementing this idea of a buyer consultation with a buyer guide that kind of clearly lays out the benefits of them having a buyer's agent representing them, and really kind of detailing what it is that they're paying us for, right? Like,
Absolutely.
so I went to our Brivity team, said, hey, we're going to create this kind of editable guide that we can put into the hands of April and Bob and Bruce and everybody that joined us today. And you guys will be able to take this thing and go and tweak away on it. The So they came to me and said, hey, we're going to do this. We want to have a webinar. We need to go find somebody that's really good at delivering the buyer presentation. And so I reached out to a couple of people around here, and they told me Ryan Randall's the guy. Like, he
I
is,
appreciate that.
he's the, you're a lead buyer's agent on the Ben Kinney team in Bellingham, Washington. You and your partner, Ryan Gregg, you guys sling a lot of real estate. And so you're doing this. Like, when's the last time you did a buyer presentation with somebody, Ryan?
Oh gosh, it's a weekly thing. A few times a week, usually anywhere between like 1 to 3 times a week. I'm hoping to have a buyer's consultation, and that ranges. And that's one thing I like to hit home on these calls is that ranges from somebody that like last or just on Monday I had one with somebody that's like, hey, we're selling our house down here. We're buying in the next couple months. To I don't know how any of this works. I'd like to buy a house in the next a couple of years, next year. I don't know when I can buy it, but I'd like to do this. So it can really cater to someone that's been an experienced buyer that sold a home, to somebody that is brand new, doesn't know what they're doing, first time home buyer. So that's the nice thing. It's always good to sit down, especially with these new compensation things, to sit down. Hey, what do you need? Get their needs analysis done, but also kind of explain how this is maybe a little different if they've done this in the past too.
Awesome. All right. So as we go in here today, you guys, over the next 56 minutes, this is going to be a little bit Ryan kind of doing the presentation, and I'll play the buyer. Our friend Kevin, you guys can see him on the screen here. He's going to be in here to answer any questions that you guys have in the chat. And Kevin, if somebody asks a question you think's worth bringing up, please butt in on us and say, hey, great question from Carol here, and we can address it. And then so
Yep.
it'll be part Ryan giving the presentation, and then part I want to thread in. And Ryan, I'm going to ask you potentially to thread in some of the why behind it. Like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
you did. Like, what's the point of that? Why do we do that? What are we trying to get them to understand? So it'll be a little bit of kind of insight on the presentation as we go through it. Is that cool? I'm not going to throw you off. You've done this enough time.
No, no, that's great. That's exactly how I like to do it too. So yeah, we'll kind of present Bob. It's actually nice presenting to Bob because it's usually the fake name I use when I do these things anyway. But then we can go through and kind of provide some context. And I think just kind of like what you should really be trying to hit on when you're going through these pages, right?
Yeah, cool. By the way, Bob's the realest name you could ever have. So I don't know why you're using
it. Is the realest guy. Yeah, definitely not.
I'll let you get away with it because we went to the same high school. So we did. That's cool. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're basketball alum. We gotta keep each other nice. Do you want me to share my screen for the presentation then?
Sure. Yeah. Why don't you share if you want to take control of it? And
I got it.
So he's gonna pull it up. Karen, yes, this is recorded. In 24 hours, we will send it out, Karen. And along with the recording will come out this editable document. And he's actually going to work from the editable document. You guys will get this thing. You'll be able to make a copy of it. There's some instructions on here, right? Things like, hey, go in and add a slide for your mortgage provider, or right, because we had to dumb it down so everybody could use it. I don't want to say dumb it down. We had to kind of sterilize it so everybody could use it, right? Ryan's actual presentation he uses is going to have a few additional slides, one for his mortgage person or one for something else they do, right? That maybe not everybody does, but most of what we did here is stuff that just about all of you guys are doing. And hey, you could take a page or two out if it's, something that you're not comfortable with. So Ryan, those first couple slides that we went through, those are just instructions once everybody in the room gets their hands on the actual deck. Yeah, the slides, Andy, will be emailed out along with the recording within the next 24 hours right after we finish here. All right, Ryan.
Awesome. So just to start off, remember, we've set the appointment with this person. So we should have some information. I should have some things that I know about Bob. I probably have a rough idea what he's looking for. We know where he came from, whether I was in a web lead, that was someone from our sphere, we met him at an open house, whatever it may be. We probably know some stuff about Bob. So what we like to start with here is Bob, and I'm just going to kind of hop into this, is Bob, the first thing I always want to say when I sit down with my clients is that this whole thing's about you. It's about your dreams, your needs, your questions, your timeline, and ultimately your wealth. And I just want to know that this entire process, I want to make sure that you can communicate me what you're going to need, and I'm going to cater this to you at any point in time, and that no question's a dumb question, and at any time, I'm always going to be available to you. Does that sound fair?
That sounds great, Ryan.
Awesome. And this is usually a chance where I'll be like, was there anything right out of the gate that you really wanted me to touch base on, or you had questions on to start? And usually whatever his question is going to be falls within this presentation. And if it doesn't, then we'll hit it now. But 99 times out of 100, it's going to. Okay. So then we'll jump into our next page. And Bob, the next thing is I wrote this letter out that just lays out why I do what I do and why I think home ownership is important. Do you mind if I share this with you?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, as your real estate team, our goal is to make your dream of owning a home a reality. So you can build the financial strength and security that home ownership provides. A recent U.S. Census study reported that the average homeowner's net worth in the United States is 38 times that of a renter. Your growing net worth can be used to start a new career or business, take care of loved ones, send a child to college, give generously to others, retire, among many things. In fact, government incentivizes home ownership surpass those of any other investment vehicle. Buying a home is an investment like no other, and part of the ultimate benefit is that your monthly living expenses go right back into building your net worth instead of building someone else's. Most importantly, the biggest benefit of home ownership is building tax-free wealth. Unlike returns from other investments, the return on home ownership, what economists call imputed rent, is excluded from taxable income. You're in good hands now, and our mission is to make you a believer in the dream of home ownership. Right. The big thing here is it kind of is laying the groundwork for our next pages, Bob. Right. Our next pages are really talking about the financial benefits of owning a home. Obviously, that's why I like to start with a little bit of, hey, what are your questions? What do you want in a home? So we touch base a little bit on that personal side, and then we can get into the money side of this thing. Right. Because a lot of people are going to be motivated for buying a home for financial reasons. There's a reason they're looking to do this, why they've been saving up money. But we don't want to just hit that first. We want to hit this kind of second and lay the groundwork for why this is important for us. Right. Bob, anything you can think to add to this little first part of these first two pages we went through?
No, let's keep going.
Great. Right. This is this next page. Right. And this is a great time for to have them download maybe the mortgage calculator that you use. Obviously, I'm using the Place Mortgage app. And this also will help me fill out the next page that we're going to go through. But it really sets home, like we said, we just said in the last one, the U.S. Census study said 38 times that of a homeowner to a renter, right? And this lays that out for them. So, Bob, this is where I go, hey, Bob, I always go over this with people because I find this really important. Like it said on that last page, a homeowner typically has a net worth 38 times that of a renter. And I'm going to show you how that works and why that breaks down in long term. It's better to be owning a home than to be renting a home. Does that sound good?
That sounds fantastic. By the way, Ryan, you use the Place mortgage calculator. Ladies and
Correct.
gentlemen on the call, if you don't have a mortgage calculator you love, go to the App Store and search Brivity mortgage calculator. The same calculator that Ryan uses, and we just have it branded Place, there's a Brivity version available. And so it's actually going to help you fill out is it the next page, Ryan,
Yeah, it's the next page. It's our next page.
Perfect.
Yeah. So these are these 3 pages. I'm going to set a little context before we actually talk about these, right? So this is something that I remember the first time I saw Ben go over this, I was just like, it just makes so much sense. And we got to slow down a little bit on this page because it gets a little, I don't want to say mathy, because we're going to have this pre-filled out usually. Like I said, we know what Bob's looking for. So I know Bob was looking for a $700,000 house here in Bellingham, roughly. These numbers don't need to be perfect, right? He might be, actually, I'm going to look for $800,000 house because I got approved for more, or whatever it is. So we just want to have a rough idea of their price point. If we know they're looking 500, 250, a million, whatever that number is for them, we'll put that in. Usually, depending on the price point, I put in somewhere between 10 to 20% down for the second box here on the principal payments. We do put in a mortgage amount. I typically do 10 or 20% depending on what price point they're at. They're at 500, I usually do 10%. They're at 800, I usually do 20%. Again, this doesn't need to be exact. This is why we're sitting down and meeting with them so we can get an idea of where we're actually going to be. It's to give them the idea and so they can see year to year what the financial benefit of that is going to be. So I'm going to jump right in. So Bob, I always go over this with all my clients, and something I get really excited about is these are the 3 ways that we really build wealth through real estate. So you can see here, Bob, the first, I like to call these buckets, is the first bucket's going to be appreciation. And real estate has appreciated an average of 4% annually over the last 30 years. Now, this is a national statistic, which means for some areas and some years, the number may be more or less. Right? I'm going to stop real quick. Cater that a little bit to your market, right? I'm in Bellingham. The real estate in Bellingham has appreciated much higher than 4% annually over the last few years. So I like to let people know what that's averagely been. And the other thing I always like to hit here, because we still get doom and gloom from 2008 saying, this is a national statistic over the last 30 years. That includes the Great Recession 2009 when real estate values went way down. We're still seeing as a nation an average of homes going up 4%. So cater that a little bit to your market so you can give a little expertise to that. So, Bob, this usually makes sense to people, right? Grandma's house, you bought it in 1990 for, a box of raspberries and $27, and now it's worth what it is now, right? So I don't know if it's going to appreciate as much as it did then, but what we're seeing on average is it's going to go up about 4% a year, right? So in the first year, we talked about you buying a $500,000 home. In that first year, we're going to see about $20,000 of appreciation. That makes sense, right? Like the home's going to go up continually over time. Next year you're going to make 4% on the 520 and so on and so forth. So that isn't just something you see year one. We're going to see that every year you own that home. Does that make sense, Bob?
Yeah, right.
Perfect. And the next thing, so I'm going to stop again. The principal payments, this is one that's nice to have filled out. Let's say Bob puts down 10. So we're going to put in the mortgage amount. So we're say Bob puts 10% down on a $500,000 house. It's 50 grand. Mortgage amount would be 450,000. The rate, put whatever you think is fair, 7%, whatever you think is fair. I always do a 30-year term. And right here, when we fill out that Place mortgage calculator or the Brivity mortgage calculator, there is a feature on the app that will fill that out all for you. If someone has questions about exactly how to do that, we can go over that at the end of the call. But that's going to shoot you out a number down here. It's usually in the $5,000 to $6,000 range. I just don't have the calculator pulled up in front of me.
Here, let's do this really quick, Ryan. Just because I think it makes a lot of sense. This calculator is really powerful for this.
Yeah, if you want to show them the
presentation, I am. Yeah, give me 1 second here. I apologize, I wasn't prepared to do this, but I think it makes so much sense. So let me turn my Wi-Fi on really quick.
Yeah, I'm doing it on mine too.
Oh, you're good, man. I got it pulled up here. So just give me 1 second. Boom. There we go. Pull that up. Okay. 1 second, you guys. I'll share my screen with you. Yep, Ryan, I'm gonna share mine really fast here, and then we'll go back to you. So let's because Ryan, you a lot of times would just even have this out potentially, right? And like
Yeah, I
doing
have
the
it.
market, like if you didn't have it pre-filled, you might
Yep.
pull that mortgage calculator out and like do this with them as you're going. So here's the mortgage calculator, and I'll kind of start from the beginning. It's like the value of home ownership, and there's another thing here where you can calculate a mortgage, but I'm doing the value of home ownership. I say get started. Ryan says, all right, we were looking at a $500,000 house, but 10% down payment here.
Yep.
10%, get that in there. Loan term of 30 years. Ooh, I wish I could still get that interest rate, but I'm probably closer up here, Ryan.
Yep.
Average appreciation at 4%. I file married. My wife makes really good money, Ryan. And boom, that's my year one appreciation. You mentioned that earlier. That was a real easy calculation to do. This second one, right? How much principal reduction?
Yep.
I asked ChatGPT earlier and it gave me the formula in math, which is this crazy formula to fit, right? We would generally do this with an amortization table.
Yeah.
But this just shows me that would be my principal reduction, right? $4,500 on paying off my mortgage for that first year, which essentially is kind of putting that money back towards my net worth.
Yep.
Next would be my tax savings based on the interest that I'm paying and my ability to write off interest in the state that I live in. View summary. And now I've got kind of essentially, and Ryan, maybe I'll take us back and let you share again. These are the numbers that Ryan would have filled in on his screen there.
Yeah, where do I go? There we go. Yeah, so you nailed that, Bob. So that's exactly right. So I'm going to have this pre-filled out. Bob showed you how to do that in the calculator. I think someone in the chat asked where we can find that at, Bob.
Yeah, just go to your app store and search Brivity mortgage calculator, and you'll be able to download that Brivity mortgage, that home ownership app.
Right. So it's about I think it was $4,600 on the principal payment. So this is where, again, we're going to hit home. So Bob, essentially what this means is right now you're renting, right, Bob?
Yeah.
And how much is rent right now?
Rent's not cheap these days in Bellingham, buddy. It's $2,800 is what we pay, and I'd probably like the $3,500 rental place, but I'm not doing that. Like I need to buy something.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And right now that $2,800 a month you're spending every month, Bob, goes back to the landlord. Right, that's going back to paying the rent. Now, when you're making that mortgage payment for hopefully around the same amount of money, is part of that's going back to you. And what we're going to see is in the first year, you're going to pay about $4,600 a year in principal payment, meaning you're paying down the loan, that mortgage amount of $450,000 by $4,600. And every year we're going to pay a little bit more because we're paying a little bit more down to that loan until we're at the end of that 30-year term and we've paid off that whole loan. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And the last one, tax benefits. Again, it even says on your guide right here, homeownership can offer many benefits to taxpayers. These include the ability to write off and deduct interest paid up to a specific amount of a mortgage, plus property tax benefits and private mortgage insurance in many cases. It's going to say, hey, be careful with this one. We're not tax accountants, right? Like that's like part of the whole thing of being an agent is we're the real estate agent, not their accountant. So I always make sure to hit home saying, hey, taxes can be a little bit different for everybody. It might make sense for you to take this. It might make sense for you to go another route tax-wise, but this is an option for you. And Bob, when you show the calculator, I think it was just around, was it
10 grand,
15, 20? Yeah, it was 10.
10 grand. So,
yeah. Right. So we're going to put the total interest paid. It's going to show us that in the mortgage calculator where we put the tax bracket that you and your wife were in, and then eventually your tax savings. So it's 10 grand. So Bob, at the end of the year, you can write off that $10,000 towards your taxes every year. So that's the other way we can get these. So what we want to do is we want to add up these three buckets, Bob. So we want to add up our appreciation, our principal payments and tax benefits. I think it was about $32,000 on
34. Yeah,
34,000.
Yep.
And we're going to write this out, right? We're going to have this all pre-filled out and explain this to them and how that works. And I'm going to tell you guys, like I've been doing this for, 7.5, 8 years now. Nobody else is really doing this in the industry. I'm shocked. Like Ben puts these videos out. We've had this guide forever, and nobody copies it and does it. And it doesn't matter if someone's a first time buyer or someone that's bought a lot. What I've found is a lot of people are really blown away and surprised by what these numbers are. And it kind of gets people excited. We're like, oh shoot, like maybe I'm buying that more expensive house. Now I'm getting more appreciation, or I'm buying my first house in a long time and I'm not renting anymore. And I'm paying down my own loan instead of my landlord's. So this gets people pretty excited financially. And then the rest of this is when we start getting into the nitty gritties of how this works. I think the big thing, again, is to really slow down and check on every single bucket. Is there any questions you had about principal payments? Most people get appreciation. That one's pretty straightforward. The other two can get fuzzy for some folks, depending on where they're at and what they've done financially in their lives. Go to the next one. And then this is where we go back into, hey, this is what do we want to find here? Again, slow down to this part, right? So when I do this is Bob, the next thing I want to go over, I call this the needs analysis. And we have a few goals and promises. And the first goal is this home buying process will be one of the best decisions and purchases of your life. The second will be, we'll help you find the perfect home for the best possible price. And the third, we'll have constant, clear communication throughout the whole process. Other than those three goals, was there anything that you think we should add to this?
Oh man, we'd like to be in by the end of September, Ryan. Like that's when the lease is up, and so that we really have kind of a timing thing here as well.
Yeah. So absolutely, and Bob, that's a timeline that we can work with, and that we're just going to have to be proactive about, and we should get jump started on as soon as possible. So, Bob, while we're looking for this house in September, I really want to find you the right house. I don't want to be sending you homes that just don't make sense. And I always tell my clients, I'd rather ask you about 20, 30 questions now and show you 5 houses than vice versa and ask you 5 questions and we go out and look at 20, 30 homes and waste your time. Other than the location of it being here in Bellingham, what were some important features that are must-haves, things we can't change about this home, right? I can change the paint. I can't change where it's at.
Yeah, we'd like to have a little bit of a yard with the boys. In a perfect world, Ryan, a fenced yard, but I understand that maybe we could figure something out there if there was a yard that didn't have a fence. I gotta have a 2-car garage, right? My wife hates parking a car outside, so 2-car garage. Other than that, we already talked about 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. And Ryan, I know most of the schools in Bellingham are pretty good, but I'd hate to end up in the worst at the worst elementary school because my boys are in kindergarten and 2nd grade.
Absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. And again, we're just going to have this back and forth on these pages, right? We're going to talk about, hey, well, most of the schools are good. These are probably the 2 schools that I would say, are least funded or whatever that might be that's important to them. And to say, hey, so we'd want to avoid these specific locations or say, hey, your price point's actually not going to put you in this location anyway, or whatever that might be, is we just want to talk to them about what's really important to them. And I think, Bob, you kind of answered that question perfectly for me. Get them to focus on what's important, right? Like, hey, we really like a fenced yard. Well, Bob, if we found the perfect house, had everything else for you, but it wasn't fenced yet, would you be willing to fence the yard later? Most people would say yes, right? I can't change if the house doesn't have 4 bedrooms. I can change what color the house is, right? There's things like that. So we really want to get them to get excited about what they're looking for. Bob, you answered a great one that's common is when do you need to be in by? And then really getting them to focus on the things that we can't change in a home. Again, I don't want to show a house at 6 o'clock that my clients not have any interest in, right? I don't want to drive all the way to Linden or drive a half an hour to Blaine to go show a house that, in 2 minutes they know they don't like because I didn't ask 2 extra questions in my consult. Right. So Bob, with your time constraint on getting September, I know we've kind of started talking about the process of getting approved. Have you gone as far as going and talking to a lender yet?
Ryan, I haven't. My wife and I have just been really focused on saving for that 10% down payment that somebody told us we needed. So no, I have not talked to a lender yet.
Awesome. Well, hey, there's no issue with that, but that is going to be our first step once we finish this meeting. That's going to be the biggest thing. And the reason I say that, Bob, is there's 2 reasons. One, we needed to know how much you can afford. And the other thing is we want to make sure we do this backwards. And I always tell people, when most people go get approved for a loan, they're probably going to approve you for way more than you want to spend. I know you were saying you'd probably want to stay around what you're paying for rent now, which is $2,800 a month. Maybe you could go up a little bit higher if the house is right. So they're probably going to approve you for a loan that will probably put you way higher than that. We want to figure out what price we want to be shopping at to keep you at that comfortable monthly payment. That right? Like we don't want to go over that, right? So perfect. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to text you 2 contacts, and then I'm going to put you on an email with 2 of my lenders, just so you have 2 contacts that you can refer back to and talk about. The 4 main things that they're going to go over with you and get started on is first, we're going to fill out an application. And what that means is basically they're going to get the required documents. So you'll need to gather probably your last 2 years of tax returns, recent pay stubs, any asset statements like a 401k, 2 months of bank statements, really the important documents that are going to paint your financial picture. They're going to ask for that. So when you fill out that application with them, be prepared to have that stuff ready. If you don't have that readily available to you, most likely your HR has that if you don't have like a portal that you can do that with work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Great. So once we finish that app and we do all that stuff, you and the lender are really going to talk about what loan program is going to be best. I know we talked about saving 10%. They're going to talk to you about what's going to make the most sense, what type of loan, how much you're going to want to do. And that kind of brings us into down payment terms and rates. We just want to make sure that we're fitting your needs the best way to make sure we have the loan program that's going to work best for you, save you the most amount of money, and have the best payment for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, once we've done all that, we'll get what's called a pre-approval letter or amount. So again, you might get approved for way more. Say they approve you for something that's like a $4,000 mortgage, but that's a $700,000 house. We might go and say, hey, we want to stay around $3,000, and that's going to be a $575,000 house. So we know exactly how much we want. Once we have that pre-approval letter, we're good to go write an offer on any property. But before we write an offer on a property, it's really important we get this done. Put yourself in the seller's shoes. If somebody came to you with a pre-approved buyer and someone who wasn't pre-approved and they offered you the same amount of money, which offer would you feel more comfortable taking, Bob?
Yeah, I'd take the approved one probably.
Right. We want the person that's done their due diligence and done all that. So it just puts you in the strongest possible position that we can put you in as a buyer. Was there any questions you had about how any of this loan process works, or getting in touch with anybody?
No, I don't. Not. I mean, I'm sure I'll have some questions about the loan, but not right now.
Yeah, great. And when it comes to this is also another part where I'm going to tell people, and when it comes to the actual loan itself and having questions about this, me and the lender work hand in hand. So don't feel like you have to filter your question for the lender through me. Once we have that relationship established, they can talk to me, and we're going to kind of work all together as a pair of three here, or a trifecta here, and actually get you going. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, setting that expectation of how they can communicate with the lender, that they don't need to ask you, well, how much should I put down? What's my payment going to be like? So you don't seem like you don't know what you're talking about. It's not your job to know how much their payment's going to be on a certain house, right? So we go on to the next one. Bob, this is always a form or a piece I like to go over. It seems simple, but it saves some people some headache. And these are the buyer beware when buying a home. Ultimately, what these 10 items really mean, Bob, is don't change anything you're doing financially. Your lender will go over this with you too, but don't do anything big that you're not already doing. People ask me, hey, I use my credit card for everything and just pay it off at the end of every month. Is this going to be an issue? If that's what you've been doing, just stay doing the same thing. So the 10 things we always tell people not to do is don't change jobs or become self-employed or quit. Don't buy a new vehicle. Do not excessively use credit cards, cancel cards, or fall behind on payments. Just keep doing what you've been doing. If you got pre-approved that way, you'll stay pre-approved that way. Don't spend the money you have set aside for closing. Do not leave out debt or liabilities on your application. They will find them, and they'll probably find them a little bit at an inconvenient time. Don't go buying furniture for the house on credit for a house that you might not be able to move into. If we do that, wait till we're done and closed. Do not originate any inquiries into your credit. Don't get a new Costco credit card. Don't get a new credit card at Chase Bank. Don't do anything different, right? Don't make any large deposits or withdrawals without checking with your loan officer. If grandma's going to write you a big birthday check, maybe check with the lender before you go cash it, right? Don't change bank accounts. I know, if you get in a big argument with the Wells Fargo guy or the Bank of America guy and you want to change banks, stay with that bank until we close, and then don't co-sign a loan for anyone. These all probably make sense, Bob, right?
Yeah, for sure, Ron.
Cool. Right. So, Bob, the next things I want to go over with you is where we're going to really be looking for this home. Right. So we want to make sure we're finding you the right home. You've been getting the homes I've been emailing to you directly, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And that website's looking all good. And Bob, feel free to chime in here with exactly some of the options that some of these folks on the call might have for setting their clients' homes, or where their clients can be looking for homes.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, listing alerts is obviously going to be one. We'd love to have them with the Brivity home app downloaded, so that I tend to say when they're at work, Ryan, they get that email from us and they look at those homes on their computer, probably on our desktop website. When they're sitting on their couch at night, watching American Idol or whatever people watch on TV at night, right? They're probably thumbing through an app on their phone for looking at houses. And so we would love that to be our Brivity Go app. All of you guys have both of those options as Brivity clients.
Yeah. And the Brivity Go app, that has a share option, correct?
It does have a share option for sure.
Yeah. I always think this is a great, same with the mortgage app and stuff like that. If you have a mortgage app that they can directly apply on, like the Place Mortgage app does, is when we're going over the lender thing saying, hey, I'm going to text you the app right now, and you can actually apply through there, or say, hey, I got the Brivity Go app. This is a great app for you to be able to search homes and keep everything on one spot. I'm going to text that to you right now so you have it ready to go, right? This is a really easy opportunity to say, and just get it to them. Because the big thing is we want to keep them on our site so we know what they're looking for. We know which properties they're favoriting, and we can send them the right stuff, right? That's going to be the big thing. Right. So, Bob, I like to tell people there are 5 ways we're going to look for homes while you're doing this home search. And the first makes a lot of sense to people. It's the actively listed homes and open houses. And most people are going to find that, right? The biggest thing is I really want to keep us on our platform. And the reason that being is my platform is going to send you the homes as much as I possibly can, right? We were never going to miss a home on this. We jokingly sometimes say in the industry, that, the A in Zillow is for accuracy. Is sometimes they show up a little bit later, or the information's wrong or something like that. I know my information from our website comes directly from the MLS, so every 10-15 minutes our site's updating for anything that's new on the market or just reduced its price, right? And I'd hate for you to miss something, especially in this busy summertime when some homes are selling really fast. Is I want to make sure you see those homes right away and we can schedule the tour so we don't miss anything. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Great. The next one I like to go over this is for sale by owners. Our team does have access to for sale by owner properties. We can schedule an appointment with properties, for sale by owner properties. I just always say, hey, take a little caution on these, as a lot of times FSBOs are overpriced. There's a reason they're deciding not to list with an agent or go with kind of an alternative route of listing their home. It's usually a price thing, or they're kind of a curmudgeon old man. So if you see one driving around, you might see a sign in a yard, something like that. What I want you to do, Bob, is just let me call, right? It's my job to represent you. So if you see one on Facebook or a sign driving around, or maybe it's somebody from work, just let me contact them on your behalf. And that way I can get the negotiation started, get us in there, see what they're doing price-wise, making sure that's all realistic. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Boom. Boom. The next 3. So the next one I like to say is foreclosures. We are experts at locating and selling HUD homes, bank foreclosures, short sales. If you're interested in any of these kind of properties, just let me know. The one thing I like to tell people, Bob, is there's not a lot of foreclosures on the market. It's still making up less than 1% of home sales in my market. So we're not seeing them a lot. Oftentimes foreclosures are in pretty rough shape, and they're usually bid on by investors that a lot of times have cash. That's not to say we can't find one, but I wanted to at least set that expectation with you that they don't come up a lot, and a lot of times they're kind of in a fixer condition. The other thing you might see online, if you go to like a Zillow, is something that might say pre-foreclosure on a home. That doesn't mean the house is for sale right now. Some websites you'll see online have some sort of algorithm that can see if a home is starting to go through a foreclosure process. Sometimes they see the light of day. Sometimes they see the light of day in like 2 years. Sometimes those take a really long time. So if you see that, let me know about it. I can do a little bit of research, but that doesn't necessarily mean those ones are for sale. Okay. The next one, and one that I really hope that we can find, is an off-market home. Our team knows of some wood sell properties. These are properties that, maybe they tried to sell a home a couple of years ago, it didn't work out. They're looking to sell it at a convenient time. They're just maybe not quite ready. But people that would sell their home, they're just not quite ready to actively have it on the market. So we have people in our database that, now that I know exactly what you're looking for, that I'm going to go try to find. I also do prospect in neighborhoods to try to find homes off market. And the reason it's great for us to find something off market, Bob, is you're looking at a relatively competitive price point in some instances here in Bellingham. And I'd love to find you something that works off the market where we don't have to compete, can maybe be getting a good deal. And the seller is happy with the price that they're getting, and you're happy with the home that you're getting. I think that's a win-win for everyone. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And the last thing, Bob, is new construction. And the reason these should be actively listed, but I put these in a different category, is new construction can be a little fuzzy on how it works. Home builders represent their best interests at all times. So I always say it's really good that you need an advocate to help you save money and not overpay. So if you see a new construction, either a development, a one-off that you like, let me know about it right away. What I've found is a lot of times they don't like people just walking onto their lots, even if they say it's an open house, is they want whoever's going to be representing you to be with them at all times. And they get a little frustrated if that doesn't happen. So I'd hate for that to happen. We start the wrong foot. So if you see a new construction, just let me know about it, and I can make sure we can get in there, view the options, see what the finishes are like, and hopefully get into something if we do go that route, and you can pick some of the stuff out. Sweet. Is there any questions or anything else that you've seen that you had questions on how we're going to look for homes?
I don't know. I feel like that's all the houses.
That should be all the houses. I haven't, in 8 years, I haven't found one in not one of these 5 buckets. The big thing, Bob, that I really want to hit home on this page is call me. right? If you see a foreclosure, call me. You see a FISBO, call me. You see just a house that I sent you on a listing alert, call me, right? I call this the moat. I want to build this big moat, like around a castle, like with alligators in it, around my buyer. I don't want them going to Zillow and hitting contact agent on Zillow, and then they go meet with my competition, right? Like the big thing here, I want them to call me whenever they see a home and know that they can ask me questions. So I don't lose this person to somebody else or something funky happens. They walk into an open house and go meet another agent.
Love it.
Right. Always be the first to know. This goes into that. Is there anything else you want to hit on sending properties or anything like with the Brivity Go app that you think is important for anyone on the call?
No, I mean, look, I think all of us should be able to explain, like, my website is up to date. It's, it's constantly updating every 10 minutes. It's got the newest listings always. I also have an app that, no, I mean, I don't know that there's anything like super
It's pretty straightforward.
super deep here. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, guys, if you're not having this conversations with your buyers, you're likely being sent links from Zillow where they're like, hey, what about this one? And you're like, that one went pending a week ago. So yeah, I mean, I want them on my site, so I'm dealing with less of that.
Yeah, we want that. We just want to keep them on our site because we just don't want, like I said, we don't want them to be looking on Zillow and hit that contact agent or Redfin and click that button on us, and all of a sudden they just met with our competition. And some of those people that are paying for those expensive leads are pretty good agents. They might get your client. We don't want that.
Absolutely. So this one here, you guys, if you're really good at using your Quickly, Kevin, I know Kevin loves this one. You can let them know about Quickly. You could literally have them pull their phone out and say, do me a favor. And Ryan, your guy's keyword up there is Ben Kinney, right? So you can say, listen, right now, pull your phone out, text Ben Kinney to 59559. Boom, it comes back. And then like literally sitting there, you can say, all right, click the link and it's going to pull up the listings nearest to us right now. But if you're out and about and you come across the house that you're interested in, just text the address of that house to this thread right here where you texted Ben Kinney to 59559, and it'll send you back the price, the photos, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the square footage, all of the basic information you need if you're standing out in front of a house. Don't feel like you need to call the agent to get that information. Just whip out your cell phone and shoot a quick text to Quickly.
Yeah, you that last sentence you said was the big reason I think this is such a value add. Is we don't want them calling the sign, just like we don't want them hitting contact agent on another website. Is we don't want them being in contact with another agent. That's our client. We want to work with our clients. So the fact that they know, hey, any sign up, if this thing works off locating where I'm at, and I can just text this number when I buy this listing and get all the information I need. I don't have to pick up the flyer. I don't have to call anyone else. I can just know right then and there. I think that's a huge value add to a lot of clients. We kind of went over all this. Anything else you need to add on this page, Bob?
No. I might just reinforce, like at this page right here, if they don't have my app on their phone today, I'm probably pulling Brivity Go out and sending them that app.
Yeah. I think it's these pages are a great opportunity for us to share that app and get them going on our stuff. This is talking a little bit about market reports. Anything you want to talk specifically about with this?
No, I would just let them know that one of the things that we do for them is, we're going to be sending you those new listings every day as they hit the market or when anytime a price reduction happens. But I'm also going to set up once a week a report that comes out to you that kind of gives you a sense of what's happening in that area we're looking to buy. So Ryan, we're trying to find us a house in Bellingham at 500,000. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a market report going out to you once a week, showing us everything happened in Bellingham. And this is going to be wide, but between 4 and 600,000. I want to give you a good sense of the market, not just in that area we're looking to buy, but on kind of both ends of that price point as well. And so once a week, it'll send you out a report that shows you everything that was for sale at one point that's now pending. It will also show you the stuff that's sold, and it'll show you what it's selling for. And what I'd like you to do there is take that information and start to understand the market, right? I don't want you to get disappointed because you see a house that comes on and man, it's listed really well and you think, wow, that's great. The houses like that are going to sell really fast. So when we see one like that come through the listing alert, you're going to see it later on the market report. We're going to see what it sold for. It's just going to give you a really good sense of what's happening in this area in Bellingham that we're trying to buy in.
Yeah, I think this is something that a lot of agents and Brivity users probably miss out on with their buyers, is setting them up on a market report. one, we know it has like the highest open rate, so they're probably going to open it no matter what. But it does set that expectation. And I think, like you said, the big thing I want to hit here is so they can see what stuff's pending for, how quickly stuff's pending, and what it's eventually selling for. Because that's what the market report will tell them that a listing alert won't. Is that, oh wow, that property at 123 Main Street here in Bellingham, that already went pending. That went pending like, wow, that went pending in a week. And they can say, wow, that other one that we looked on Banana Street, that one sold for $20,000 over asking price. Okay, that's good to know. And so when they see another one that's, on the next block over on Cantaloupe Street, like now they know, oh shoot, that last one went $20,000 over. We probably have to do something similar. And now this kind of, again, that's one thing Chris always says is let the data eliminate the drama. You're not now the bad guy saying, hey, let's offer 20 grand, 25 grand over on this house. It's, well, the house on the next street over just sold $20,000 over. And you'd say this one's pretty similar, right? Like, what do you think we need to offer? And I think that brings us exactly to our making an offer page. So Bob, this is a page where I like to say, like, these are going to be the important things we want to look at when we're making an offer on a home. When you actually see something, you're like, Ryan, this is one we can see ourselves living in. What do we need to do to actually win, right? So the big thing is that last page is kind of giving them the market overview. So hitting home, like, well, we've been talking about the market and what this is. This is usually a time I'm actually going to pull up the MLS and find their price point. So if Bob's saying, hey, I'm looking at $500,000 homes in Bellingham, I'm going to pull up all the homes that are for sale in that price point and say, hey, this is how many are actually for sale, right? Oh, wow, there's 3, or there's a lot of inventory in their price point. Oh, wow, there's 12 homes in this price point. And the reason we want to do this, and this is common sense stuff. I haven't had someone really get flustered when you say, show them these data and say, okay, there's 12 homes that we can go look at, or there's 2. They understand that there's a lot more demand for those 2 homes when they're not very long days on market and there's only 2 of them for sale. And the last few in that price point have all sold for over asking price and in less than 2 weeks, right? Again, we want the data to eliminate the drama. So with your buyer, sit down and say, okay, they're looking for $600,000 houses here in, Jackson, Mississippi, or wherever you're at. Say, this is what it's like for this market. And we want to walk them through each step of these. And really the big thing we want to see is how long are they on market for? How much over asking price, if or under asking price, are they selling for? And how many do they actually have to go look at right now? Right? If we hit on those 3 things, people are really going to see. You're kind of just doing a CMA in front of them. And when people can see, okay, the homes are selling in less than 10 days, they're selling for 3 to 6% over asking price. Now they know when they go to that house on Cantaloupe Street that that's what it's going to be like, that this house is going to pen and do that. You just need to set the proper expectations. So you're not going there, they go look at that house on Cantaloupe Street and all of a sudden, well, let's offer full price. And I go and I see the entire kitchen counter is covered in business cards and there's a review date in 2 days. And I know that this house is probably going to sell for 5% plus over asking price, right? Bob, any Brivity tips or tricks on maybe we can do on this one?
No, I would mention, like, if you're on here and you're a place partner, Area Pro would maybe be a really good application for this. That's a new tool that we just ran out. If you're a Brivity user, you get a discount on Area Pro, but it essentially gives you this detail on different areas of your market and in different price bands. So you could pull up Area Pro and be like, okay, Ryan, it's been so long since I lived up there. I can't remember the neighborhoods in Bellingham. In the Cordata neighborhood of Bellingham, right? Like in the price band 480 to 500,000, like here's what's happening. It'll show you month supply of inventory, list to sales price ratio, days on market. That might be a tool that you could use to really clearly call out these data points.
Yeah, and I do this once a year for places. We do a training on the buyer's consultation, and I always get a lot of questions on this page of people overthinking it. Right? They're like, "Well, what about this number? And how do I get the exact months on inventory? And what if they're looking in this price point and this price point?" Make sure they just understand what the market's like for their price point. That's what you need to do, right? If you know they're looking in a neighborhood that's competitive, make sure that they know that and make sure that they understand what kind of offer it's going to take to win. If they're looking at a price point that's luxury, that's, hey, maybe we have some negotiating room, tell them what's reasonable. Like they might think 10% off is reasonable when really 5% off is reasonable, right? The big thing is just figuring out what's reasonable for what they're looking for. So when we go to make that offer, there's not this disconnect, because that's where I feel like a lot of agents might lose somebody is the client wants to offer a certain amount and they don't understand why that's not getting them under contract.
Got it. Right. So
right?
Andy, to your question, yes, at the end, Ryan's gonna talk about getting them to sign the buyer's agency agreement.
Yep.
Ryan, on this next slide, look, most of you guys, you can all do this, I hope. I mean, Ryan, we do this. Why?
One, first time buyers, they don't know. So the big thing, but I think the big thing on this one from offer to closing is making sure they know when stuff's happening and when they need to spend money. That's the big two things to me when I'm looking at this page, right? Making an offer, negotiating terms, offer accepted. But what do we got to do when an offer is accepted? Earnest money, right? So we need to make sure that they understand what earnest money is, how much it is, and when it's due. Right here, it's usually 1% to 2% asking price. It's due typically 3 business days after mutual acceptance, and it gets dropped off to the title company. And that money is actually going to come out of your account. They need to know that. Inspections and appraisals. How long does that stuff take? How much does it cost? Right? An inspection is usually $500-600 here. That's going to happen within the first 5 to 10 days of the transaction. We have some negotiating room on this part. Once we're done with that, we're going to order the appraisal. Typically, the lender is going to want you to pay for that ahead of time. Appraisals are usually $800 to $1,000. Those usually have a turnaround time of a couple of weeks. We'll know about that usually a week or two before closing. Again, how does an appraisal work? What does that look like? What happens if it comes in low? Right? Educating them through this process so that, again, there's not these surprises that why am I spending $1,000 for the appraisal? Or I didn't know I had to pay the inspector at the time of the inspection. Right? We want to just set the proper expectations so we don't have those speed bumps, right? That's where we lose clients and like we lose that loyalty gap is, things went pretty good with Bob as an agent, but there are a couple things happened at the end there. I was kind of unclear on stuff. And maybe, when they go to sell that house in 4 years, they don't use you again because they weren't super happy with how that process went. So this just makes the transaction a lot easier for you. I think it leads to a lot happier clients, but making sure that, like I said, they know what they're paying, when to pay it, and how these things work.
Okay. I don't think you need to go through every single one of those.
No,
Thank you for kind of calling out a couple of the highlights in here.
Those are the big ones
that you kind of focus on. Now on the next slide, you really clearly call out the costs, including some things you might have talked about on that last slide. So I'm particularly interested in number 5, by the way.
Yeah. So, and honestly, the verbiage of this, I don't know if Ben exactly wrote this or who, if there's a collection of people that wrote this. I'm just going to read this number 5 here because it's the way it's written is just, I think, really well put. And it starts to lead us into how that conversation works and getting them to actually sign a buyer broker service agreement. So, Bob, this last one, the cost of buying a home, is something that is a little bit newer that I want to go over with you. And that's buyer agent compensation. And buyer agent compensation is deferred until closing. The buyer agent's compensation is earned through the skill management of your agent to find you the right home, negotiate the price, and walk you through the entire closing process. We're going to aim to offset buyer agent compensation via seller offered commissions or concessions. With our market expertise, we do our best to negotiate compensation. And if needed, we discuss options before viewing a home and negotiate any shortfall through seller concessions. We'll also provide a clear financial picture, including out-of-pocket expenses, empowering you to make informed decisions. Right? Now, some people, they don't know going into this appointment how we get paid. So this is really going to explain that to them and for anybody new, right? Most people probably didn't buy a house since this has been something that's different. I really like the sentence in here, Bob, that's right here. We aim to offset buyer agent compensation via seller offered commission or concessions, right?
So, Ryan, let me just stop you for a second because I'm assuming at this point, the news is out there and you've dealt with this. Like you've had people say, Ryan, I heard that sellers aren't offering buyer agent. They don't have to offer buyer agent compensation anymore. Like, am I going to have to pay this out of pocket to you? Like, how much is this? Is this going to be a big amount? Like, I'm assuming you're getting peppered with lots of these different types of questions, or maybe no, not quite as much as everybody expects, or
not as much as I think people think. I think, again, this is where people get stuck. They get so hung up on, oh gosh, are they going to ask me? What if they can't afford this? We had a ton of questions on that when we did the place buyer certification. I'd have to get the exact number, but it's like over 97%. I know for sure are still paying buyer commissions. And I know everyone's market can be a little bit different. I know there's probably some market center that might be on this call. It's like, gosh, we're running into this a lot. I haven't ran into it one time all year. I haven't. Haven't ran into it one time all year. And I think this is a conversation for you to have with your team and how you guys want to go about it. But I think the big thing is here is painting the picture as if, well, how does this work? And saying, Bob, what we've found is over 97% of sellers are still paying a commission that we're willing to take to represent you as a client, right? So most likely we're not going to run into this issue. If we do find a home that someone is starting to offer 0% or a super low commission that we'd like to get a little bit more compensation on, is I'm going to paint you the financial picture of how that's going to look. And if there's a big enough shortfall that I'm not able to negotiate, I'm going to give you the financial outlook of how that looks. And we can see, okay, can we make this house work with that commission? And if it doesn't work, is this still a house that we're going to entertain as an option for us? I think the big thing that I also, Daryl said it, that works kind of back and forth between here in Bellingham and Orange County that's in place is, if we have 7 buyers that we're working with, this is a lot less of a concern than if we just have that one buyer that we're grasping onto, right? So I think the biggest thing to do is get a database and a funnel of buyers to where we have enough people that if there's somebody that is going to be really curmudgeon on this and isn't going to be willing to pay us, if the seller's not willing to pay us, is that we have 7 other buyers that are, right? We want to get a funnel so this isn't a big thing. And I think a lot of us are overthinking this and worrying about this more than we need to. Is most likely the seller is still going to offer compensation. It seems like that's happening in most market centers. It's been happening in mine with these rule changes for a long time. And if it does, we just need to paint the picture of what that looks like and let that buyer make the decision, right? Some buyers are financially going to be able to do it.
If they say, so what do you charge? What do you say? Like, I'm assuming at this stage right here, people will ask, what do you charge if it's not come up prior?
Yep. So I always show people the buyer brokerage. I'll have a buyer brokerage service agreement. I know they might look different in everybody's market center. In ours, it shows us that, what we charge or what we can take is basically how it shows. And I always am going to put 3% on that. And I let people know. And the way I write mine currently, and if this needs to change, I will change it, is I say, hey, if there's a shortfall and it's 2.5%, I'm not going to ask you to make up that 0.5%, Bob. I just put 3% on this because I'm supposed to write how much I can take up to. So if there's a shortfall with this, is usually, again, this is a discussion you need to have with your team or your team leader on how much am I willing to take. Personally, if it's 2%, I'm probably still going to take it. I'm not going to be ecstatic about 2% compared to 3%, but I'm still going to take it. Once we get under 2%, that's personally where I start to be like, okay. But again, I haven't ran into it. And that's kind of where I'm drawing the line in my sand of being like, okay, if it's under 1.5%, I got to think about how this is going to work. And that's how I'm communicating to my clients. And that might be different for somebody else. I know, like, I have the luxury of being in a price point that my average price point is like $600,000-$700,000. I know some people's price points is closer to $200,000. And, that's a different amount of money from a buyer to buyer. So it's what you feel comfortable with. That's where I'm setting my boundaries and expectations and letting them know where they'll need to come in if there's a shortfall. But I'm not running into it a bunch. And I think educating them on how that works and making sure they understand if it does come up, how that's going to work.
Got it. All right. Next. So we got cost of buying home. Where are we at now? Closing day, mission accomplished. Yep. You don't have to walk us through every single one of these, but again, what are maybe the highlights or what's your purpose here with this?
I think the big thing is making sure they know they actually are going to probably have to go in to sign in person. I know some cash transactions, they let you sign electronically, but making sure they know that's when you're going to bring money. They can bring money as a wire or cashier's check or however it works with your title companies and escrow companies in your state. I always let people know, especially they're probably going to sign a day or two before closing and that we're still going to close on the closing date. So if our closing date's the 24th, you might go in and sign on the 22nd. We're still getting your keys on the 24th. In Washington State, they get access to the home as late as 9 p.m. the day of closing. So I always tell people, hey, you're probably going to sign a couple days before. I'm going to get you the key on the 24th unless we negotiated something differently. Plan on moving in on the 25th. That way there's no crossover. If they're still moving out that night, they have the right to be there till 9 p.m. We don't want to have moving trucks going in at the same time. So just setting the expectations so that part's smooth for you, right? Like we just want this is the last thing we're going to do with this client with this transaction. We want to go smooth. So set those expectations.
You're going to reiterate this part at
A
some
million
point
times.
later,
A
right?
million
Yeah,
times.
this
Yeah.
is just like setting the foundation, kind of laying out for especially a first-time home buyer, like this is how this all works. And I think
Yep.
all throughout the process, establishing your value to them.
Yep. Absolutely. And the last, and this is like a loyalty agreement, our agreement, right? So this is where I'm actually going to be pulling out the buyer brokerage service agreement, and we're going to be signing this at the end of this page, right? I'm not going to read verbatim all of these for folks, but basically this left-hand side is important benefits for partnering with us. This is what their expectations for us need to be, right? Like I said, we will assist you in securing financing. We're going to help you find the right home for the right best possible price. I'm going to walk you through the steps. I'm going to help you with the inspection. In return for these services, and I'm going to actually read these ones because I think these mean a little bit more, kind of get us into that, getting the buyer brokerage service agreement signed. In return for these services, you agree to seek pre-approval from a lender or proof of funds cash prior to viewing homes. I love that part, right? Like, again, we talked about on that page, before we go look for homes, we're going to get you pre-approved, right? Secondly, you're going to notify us of any listed property you wish to view and inform all agents for sale by owners or new home builders that we are working with you, right? We talked about building the moat around the buyers, right? Again, we're hitting home on that. Third, have a member of our team formulate an offer on any home, new or resale, through us. And then fourth, acknowledge that the broker is being retained solely as a real estate agent and not as an attorney, tax advisor, lender, appraiser, home inspector, or other professional service provider, and that you've been advised to seek professional advice concerning condition of the property and all legal and tax matters. Bob, are there any other things that I didn't have on this list for the both of us that you think would make sense to add here?
You're going to find me the perfect house, right? Was that on the left side? Maybe it was.
It is. I think it's the second one. But basically, we're going to find you the right house for the best possible price. All right. And then it goes into this next part. I love this. Your next steps. So, Bob, the next thing we're going to go into is talk a little bit more in depth about this buyer agency agreement and what this is going to mean setting forth and starting our business relationship and looking for a home for you. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And this is when you're going to go actually over the legal form, and it's going to be a little bit different for every MLS, every state, right? So going in, like I said, like I kind of cut my boundary here. This is how I write the form out. This is how I'm going to do this, and walk them through the actual legality of what this means. It's going to be different for everybody because every state's a little bit different. But actually go through the legalities of that. We kind of hit home on that last page where it's talking about what buyer agent compensation is. But hit home on that, and this is where you go get it signed, and answer their questions about any of those things that Bobby brought up. Like, how does this
Ryan,
work?
what kind of stuff comes? What kind of stuff comes up? So how does it work if you don't offer commission? You're like, we're going to negotiate it, and then we're going to.
Yep.
What about am I locked into working with you? What if in 2 weeks, Ryan, you're a deadbeat and you never answer my phone calls? And
Yeah.
is this like locking me into working with you? I'm assuming that's one that you guys are hearing, or
Sometimes I think no more than like when someone signs a listing contract. But just hit home like, hey, if Bob, at any point in time, this is a cancelable relationship. If you decide you're moving to Timbuktu, it rains, you didn't like the sweater I wore, so you don't want to work with me anymore. All I need you to do is send me an email and say that this relationship's over. I'm not going to hold you to something. This isn't something that once you sign this, you're stuck with me. This is a cancelable contract at any point in time. Obviously, my goal is to strive and work well. That's never going to be something you consider or need to bring up. But this is a cancelable contract at any time.
What else?
Cool.
What are some of the other common objections you hear, if any, or what are some of the myths that people are running around telling themselves in their heads they're going to hear when they ask somebody to sign that buyer agreement?
I think the myth that everyone's having is that every seller doesn't pay a buyer's agent commission and none of our buyers can afford to pay us. Right. I think that's our biggest thing. And I know, like I said, I'm sure there's some market centers. This is coming up a lot more. Just like, I feel like I had this when like iBuyer was buying homes and Zillow was buying homes that all this stuff was going to happen. And then it never really did. And really, it seems like most people want agents on the side of transactions on both sides. And I think the big thing is don't get too hung up on thinking, oh gosh, my clients aren't going to want to be able to pay me. Like, they understand, like, you're working for them. They want to make sure you're compensated. If anything, I've honestly had more people be like, you're getting compensated, right, for working with us, right? Like, they want to make sure I'm compensated more so than they're trying to find a way to not have me compensated. I think the big thing is, again, finding enough buyers that are working and able to pay us if there is that shortfall. It's not coming up a lot, but making sure they understand what that picture looks like. And I've noticed if I just say, hey, it's not happening a lot, but this is what happens if it does happen, most people just nod their head and say that makes sense. Like, and if we can explain, like, hey, this is what's going to happen if they don't offer the commission and I can't negotiate it. This is the added cost of that home. And if you get to make the decision, is that something you still want to do or not? And I think people are worried that there's going to be some agent that will offer way less, or for some reason do it for free, which I don't think any agent's going to do it for free, or they're just going to go talk to the listing agent. And if that happens, well, shoot, that happens. But I haven't had it happen yet. I don't think it's going to be something we're going to be seeing left and right. And if it does, then we're going to start making adjustments. But
I mean,
we're
I
not
love
seeing
your
that right.
Ryan. I love your approach, by the way, which is you said Daryl shared. It's like if that happens, it stings real bad if I got one buyer. Which is why, Ryan, you guys get up every day, you come into Brivity, you prospect, you do your daily routine, you call in your website visitors, your market report viewers. Like, you guys have a pipeline. And so when it happens on the Ben Kinney team up in Bellingham, it hasn't to you yet, but maybe someday it will. It's not going to hurt as bad because you got 6 or 7 other buyers in the pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, man, they weren't wrong when they told me that you're really good at this. Thank you so much for coming and sharing
thanks for having me.
The group a little bit today. So you guys, if you were on here, still here, I appreciate it. Listen, literally the document he went through, you guys are all going to get sent that in the next 24 hours, along with the recording of this. Andy, you will be able to take this thing. You'll be able to make a copy of that Google Doc that he was using, or that Google slide deck, and you guys will be able to edit it, tweak the language, change anything in there that you want that maybe they do that you don't, or add a slide or 3 in there that you do. So next 24 hours, you get your hands on that. Ryan, you don't need to do anything because we got awesome ones of these at place, and off you go to another buyer's appointment, hopefully later today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Ryan. We'll talk to you guys later. Appreciate everybody joining us. Thanks.